Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gaming Lounge Podcast, episode 91. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and as always, I'm joined by Dory. How you doing, Dory?
Hello, I'm doing all right. Here's the part where a bunch of side-scrolling text would come down, and I'd have a bunch of voices in my head saying what I should respond. With one voice saying you should do an Esoteric Ebb reference, and another saying no, play it cool, be normal, and the other says scream. But I'll just play it cool and be normal, like always. This week we're gonna have a much shorter episode, just talking about a couple news topics, and then, like I already hinted at, we are going to be talking about one of the best games of the year, Esoteric Ebb. It is a disco-like that just came out, and I'm going to sing its praises from the rooftops and the mountains to get everybody else to go play it. But before we get to that, we're also going to talk about some important news topics like Sony changing tactics in terms of exclusivity, and then great news for me and people who don't like tank controls and fixed camera angles. Resident Evil 1 Remake has entered development, or at least it's claimed via Insider Gaming. So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, so let's start with the first topic, which is Sony giving up on PC and going back to being an exclusive console only. I mean, at least that's what Jason Schreier reported at Bloomberg, and Sony themselves hasn't confirmed this, but when Jason Schreier says something, it's usually true, right? Like he's very trustworthy.
I'd say he has a good track record for this kind of stuff.
Yes. So essentially, any single player game that's released by Sony's first party will be exclusive to the console again, and it seems like the live service and the multiplayer games will stay on both PC and PS5. But again, not 100% confirmed. What is your first reaction to this news, Dory?
Yeah, I guess my first reaction is very negative. I know, when I grew up, PlayStation and Xbox were completely their presentation, their visual presentation, how they appeared to the consumer was very dominated by what exclusives they had. You knew Sony by certain titles, you knew Xbox by certain titles, right? I feel like that's very true for both. For Sony, you had the mascots, of course. You had Spyro and you had Sly Cooper, but you also had other, and Jack and Daxter. And then you also had other games as the years went on, like God of War. Crash Bandicoot, that's right. God of War and stuff like that. You had other stuff besides mascot games, but those are the ones that really stand out to me. And then, of course, Xbox had Halo, it had Fable. You had, a bunch of Xbox exclusives over the years. Gears of War, thank you. But nowadays, not so much, right? Over the years, I would say over the past 6 years, maybe more, maybe less, there has been a push to have less and less exclusivity. You've had the growth of things like timed exclusives. You've had things like, it's an exclusive, but then a year or two later, you find out it's not such an exclusive. It was timed; they just didn't say it. And then you have those rare titles, right, that are like just purely exclusive, but those are becoming less and less, right? You even have both, I believe, all of the Spider-Man games, which started out as exclusives, are on PC now, which I think is great. So it's great for the consumer when that happens because it means people don't have to buy a PS5. And these aren't the days of PS1, PS2. I'm not sure how much you could say about PS3 and 4 because that's when things started getting ridiculous. I remember how much PS3 cost when I was younger. I think PS4 was a little more reasonable because the architecture was a little better. But anyway, the point is everything's gone up. Prices have gone up. It's a lot. Now, it's also tricky with computers now. But usually you can find a decent PC that's less than a PS5. I could be, give or take, right? It's not an exact science. But I mean, I bought mine. Mine is really good, though. Mine's like a 4060, right? So I bought that for like $800, I want to say. It was on sale off of $1,000. But the one I had before that, which was like a 30-something, or I can't remember, 20, was like 600, 400. But yeah, I mean, if you do some looking on the web, you can absolutely find something that's similar specs to PS5, maybe a little under, and get a better price for it, right? Because people are selling their laptops all the time. They're wanting to get rid of stuff. Not as much for PS5s, right? So yeah, in general, I just don't feel very positively about this. I used to really love when consoles had exclusives because it makes you want to buy the console and it makes you want to invest into that ecosystem, so to speak. but I don't really want to invest anymore in the PlayStation ecosystem. I'm really invested in the PC ecosystem, and I would rather play the Steam machine than I would rather play the PS5, right? For example. So for me, on a personal level, I feel like it's a negative because it means I have to keep my PS5, which I had been considering getting rid of by the end of 2026. And then and then I've got to buy games for it that are exclusives and whatnot, which is really, it only happens once or twice a year, so it's not even a great like use of my money or time. But it is what it is. That's what Jason Schreier says. I'm inclined to believe him. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Mostly negative. I think on the consumer front, this just isn't a good move. I understand why Sony's doing it, as we'll talk about the financial motivations involved here. But I also think that's kind of Sony shooting themselves in the foot and then looking around and then being like, who did this? Why aren't we selling as well on PC? I think there are reasons for that, and it's not because people don't want their games. It's not that.
Yeah, I look at it from two different perspectives. So let's start with my perspective. I think this is a lousy move. I don't really like this idea. I would play every game on PC. I would buy all their games day one if they put them on there day one. I would fully support them. I I feel like they've self-sabotaged their PC games for several reasons. For starters, I think the exclusives have come to PC in a bad state. Not all of them, but several of the big ones like Last of Us and Spider-Man 2 have released in broken states that needed patches, and they didn't seem like they had no polish really at all. Also, they've released these games several years after release, and the hype of these games have died out, and they also put no marketing into these games at all in the no advertisements for a PC release, and they just throw it in a state of play. Oh, by the way, we have a PC version coming out. They'd not put like a God of War Ragnarok on Steam day one on the same day as PS5, and if they did that, it would have sold a lot better, honestly. That worked for Helldivers too. But that's a multiplayer game. They never put a single player game day one to test the waters to see how it would do. They basically self-sabotaged themselves in a way. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. It reminds me of the Adult Swim show. The I forget his name, Andres or something like that. But he, basically shoots somebody and then says, "Who could have done this?"
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's Sony shooting themselves in the foot and then wondering what went wrong, and wondering who had the gun. Like, you're not putting any marketing into it. You're not releasing the game. It doesn't have to be day one, but I mean, it's got to be at least year one, right? And some of these are like 2 years later, right? Death Stranding, I think, just came out. I don't think that was a PlayStation exclusive, was it?
They own it, but
They own it. Okay,
they
okay.
published it rather.
Right. But yeah, I just feel like this is Sony making a bad deal for themselves and then getting mad about it and then being like, well, we didn't want to do PC games anyway, and then we want to stick with exclusives. Now, I think it's also good to say this isn't going to be like they're never porting or they're never putting their stuff on PC again. I think it's a slight retreat and not a full withdrawal kind of situation, right? Like they're moving away from having their big titles like Spider-Man or Wolverine or whatever on PC, probably. And then they'll probably still have like multiplayer games or third-party titles or something like that. Something from Square or something from Kojima or perhaps might be a timed exclusive or might not be an exclusive at all. I know Square has said that not having it on multiple platforms has been really bad for them.
I think
so. I know they don't want to do that.
I think that's over for Square. I don't see them doing any more exclusives, whether it's timed or not.
I don't think so either.
I think they're third party only now. They can't afford to be timed or exclusive. But yeah, the other perspective from the Sony's end is I understand their mindset because obviously Sony relies on PlayStation way more than Microsoft relies on Xbox. Microsoft is a $1 trillion company largely because Windows, right? Windows is everywhere. We all use Windows. I'm on Windows right now. And but Sony relies on PlayStation as their biggest moneymaker, and they rely heavily on hardware sales and digital game purchases and PlayStation Plus subscriptions. So I get it. I just don't necessarily agree with the strategy. But I think I'm more upset from a personal standpoint because I would prefer to have everything on one platform, on the best platform I have, which is PC, and the strongest platform, right? And I don't want to have to buy a PlayStation 6. So I get it on Sony's end, like, and also I think Sony's a little intimidated by Valve getting into the console space with the Steam machine, and that they might see Steam as a competitor now, so they might not want
I
to put.
definitely, I definitely think that's part of the problem, or part of the issue for Sony at least, is that they don't want you to be able to play PlayStation games on the on the Steam machine. Now that Valve is explicitly, I mean, it's tricky to say the Steam machine is an explicit competitor because specs wise, it's really not.
Yes.
But it is at the end of the day a console, and it is competing for your time and your money with the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, I don't know. I think that it is. I think it is a factor. I'm not sure if it's a major factor, but it is a factor. I still think Sony's going to be quite all right. I think they're going to, even if they did not do anything, which they're very good at these days, by the way. Even if Sony did absolutely nothing with their strategy, I think they would still absolutely. And I love Valve, for the record. I think they would absolutely smoke Valve in sales and how many people are engaged in buying them. Like, Valve is great, and I'm sure the Steam machine will be good once it actually comes out. But yeah, Sony's a tradition, an institution at this point, and in the gaming
Yeah.
space. I don't see them being seriously hurt by the Steam machine in any way.
Yeah. Another big news topic that happened this week is the launch or the reveal of Project Helix from Microsoft, right?
Right.
And they confirmed that the next Xbox is going to be a PC too, which the rumor was already talked. That's been mentioned a million times, right? So we knew that going in, but now it's officially confirmed, and that's another reason why Sony might be doing what they're doing, because
Right.
that means every PlayStation game could be played on that Xbox console, technically, through Steam.
Yeah.
So that's another mindset, I would think, for them. So let me just bring that up. So yeah, Project Helix was described by Ashok Sharma, the new CEO of Xbox, will be a new next generation Xbox console that can play both Xbox and PC games. And this suggests that new hardware will be making akin to a gaming PC running Windows 11 rather than a traditional console. So that's another factor in this, right? Like, Xbox is really going all in on their PC and combining, like, they own Windows, right? So it makes sense. And
Right.
then, and so, like, where does PlayStation go from here? I guess they rather just build their own niche in their own sphere because they have no competition anymore in the sphere of hardcore console space. Because I don't think Nintendo competes with them in that space. Like, Nintendo competes with PlayStation for time, but do they compete for them in, like, the hardcore space? Like, if you're on a console, where do you play Call of Duty? You'll play it
I
on
would think.
you play it on PlayStation
right?
over
Yeah.
Nintendo. You're not going to play
Yeah.
Call of Duty on the Switch too. So I think Sony also sees that, is that, like, we have no competition anymore. Let's do the Nintendo thing and do our own space now that we have no competition in this little space.
Yeah.
And that's another factor, I suppose. All right. So I think the biggest problem for me is just from a personal standpoint. I would have preferred to have everything on PC. And I think PC is growing faster and faster more than ever, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've changed over, and I used to be a diehard console person. If you asked me at the beginning of when we started podcasting back in 2019, 2020, I was very much. I mean, our podcast was literally called PS Premiere, right? It was all about Sony. It was all about PlayStation.
Yeah.
We were like big, huge Sony fans. Now, fast forward to like, 5
Yeah.
years later, 6 years later, and you and I are like huge PC fans. I mean, I still have a PS5, but I got to be real. It's been collecting dust ever since Yote came out. I've got some games on there that I've been meaning to play that I want to play. That way I don't have to spend the money on Steam. But, I mean, even then, part of me is like, I could just play it on Steam, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it goes for most of my games right now.
Right. So overall, like, we both agree that Sony self-sabotaged themselves really with this. Like, they really could have advertised these games better, released them, maybe not day one, but like within 6 months, and people would have waited. Helldivers 2 was a huge success, so it feels very odd just to give up on it. I know that was not a single player game, but they should have experimented at least one single player game and see how it went, right? Like, they didn't even do that. There was not
Yeah.
one single player game they released day one just to give it a shot. Like, I guess the closest thing to that was what was that game? Soul Side, whatever it was called. That
Yeah,
was
Lost Soul Aside.
Lost Soul Side. That was technically a PlayStation game. That was Sony published, but that game was not the game to sell your console. Although, what was the purpose of putting their games on PC at the end of the day? Did they think people were gonna buy a PS5 because they wanted to play the next Horizon? There's gonna be exclusive for PS5, so they would play it on PC and then just wait. Or I don't know what I don't ever got what the strategy was anyway. Plus, we didn't even talk about the fact that Sony forced people to sign in through PSN, and that locked out many people around the world in different countries. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. That was also a big part of the problem for Sony and why they were having so many issues. I remember there was a big controversy within the Helldivers community specifically about that whole thing, and it was so bad that the devs themselves had to step in and make sure it wasn't required. That way people would still play the game and buy it.
Yeah, and Sony ultimately bent the knee as well. So uh, it's just weird to me to go that far in direction of PC releases and then just go completely 180 already. But I guess it doesn't surprise me now that new people are in charge and Jim Ryan's gone and they're shifting away from live service. So they wanted to get back to like the PS4 era, I suppose. So it makes sense from a business perspective. I don't know. I just find the whole thing odd and random. And was it really hurting them? PS5 was selling just as well as the PS4. It's been on the same path. It's selling just as much as the PS4. Sony's strong as
Well,
ever.
and it's nuts too because I've seen some figures out there that says they were still raking in a lot of money through PC sales.
Yeah.
I could be confusing the two, but I saw hundreds of thousands, if not millions, from PC sales. And so, I mean, it's not like they weren't making any money at all. Like, I know it's chump change to a company like Sony, and to a peasant like me, it looks amazing. But I don't know. I agree with you. It feels like out of nowhere. It feels unnecessary. It feels regressive in a way that just isn't needed in what we're having now as gamers.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't think this is a good consumer move. And even business wise, if they just invested marketing, if they just released it, I don't know, a year to the day or even 6 months to the day, I think they would get a lot better sales. But I think Sony simply doesn't care. And to your point earlier also about Microsoft and Valve, both going into that PC space. I'm using Windows right now as well too. So yeah, it's just a frustrating situation. Again, I was heavily considering after Wolverine, if Sony kept going in this direction, like I thought they were, that I was considering getting rid of my PS5 because I just don't play it. I don't use it. What's the point? Now I have to wait until September or whatever the dev said randomly outside of the state of play for some reason. It's coming out like September, I want to say October. But I have to wait till then to play Wolverine, and then
Yeah. Well,
that's
September.
probably the next time. That's the next time I'm going to be using my PS5, unless like some big exclusive comes out of nowhere, which maybe it will, but that's that's not guaranteed.
Right. Now, I was reading an article from GameIndustry.biz, and they backed up me saying the release of the PS5 games on PC being like delayed is what hurt the games. It says following a Bloomberg report that Sony will no longer be publishing first-party PS5 games on PC, was suggested that the decision was driven in part by poor sales for recent titles released on a platform. An analyst by Newzoo for GameIndustry.biz has suggested the company's release strategy limited its reach on PC. The company's strategy of releasing PC ports well after the PS5 release, save for the notable exception of 2024 hit Helldivers 2, led to lower audience share on PC compared to games that release on multiple platforms simultaneously, the firm said. This trend applied to all publishers, not just Sony. Quote, Newzoo's data shows that PlayStation titles ported to PC after their console launch typically see PC account for around 13% of total players in the first 3 months across both releases, says Manu Rosier, Director of Market Intelligence of Newzoo. By comparison, when comparable AAA titles launch simultaneously on PC and console, PC contributes closer to 44% of players in the same period. That's a big difference in number, right? When the game comes out at the same time.
Yeah.
What's notable is that this pattern is not specific to Sony's first-party portfolio, when we see almost no difference between first-party PlayStation titles, 12% PC share, and third-party PlayStation exclusives, 13%, suggesting the outcome is primarily driven by the staggered release strategy rather than franchise demand on PC. The data indicated a declining audience share on PC for Sony's first-party titles, with more recent releases seeing declines over prior franchise updates. Looking at individual titles, the earlier wave of PlayStation PC releases captured relatively strong player shares on the platform, said Rosier. Horizon Zero Dawn reached 22% PC share, which is overall 4 million lifetime players. God of War 2018, 14%, which was 3.5 million players lifetime. And Marvel Spider-Man was 14%, which was 3.8 million. More recent ports have generally been smaller PC shares, including Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, and Marvel Spider-Man 2. Ghost of Tsushima is the notable exception at 11%, 2.1 million players, likely supported by being the franchise's first PC release. The key takeaway is that the release timing has a significant impact on PC engagement. When a PC version arrives years after the console launch, much of the early lifecycle demand has already been captured on the primary platform. And then they close it with Sony's reported strategy change, which the firm has yet to comment on, arrives alongside the leadership shakeup at Xbox, which may herald a shift in release strategy. Firm studio lead Craig Duncan has previously said the firm is aiming to be more consistent with releasing first-party titles across multiple platforms simultaneously, and the firm announced yesterday that the Xbox console would also play PC games. So, in other words, the staggered release is what hurt them the most on the PC, and they shot themselves in the foot. And the shift in strategy doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things, because I think it could work. I think they can make a lot more revenue putting it on PC. I get it's hurting the consoles, but I think the console and the PC space are two different spaces, and I don't think either side's cannibalizing each other. I think people that want to play on console will play on console, and the people who want to play on PC will play on PC. I think Xbox is doing the better strategy here overall, but then again, they don't rely on their console to make money because it's Microsoft, not Xbox, right? And Sony relies on PlayStation. So I get Sony's mindset. I just think it's a mistake to switch back, especially how far you've come. You put all these games on PC, now you're not going to do it anymore. It's just very odd. You're going to have this barren PlayStation section of your Steam store and do nothing with it. It's just going to sit there and collect dust. Just odd. Anyway, with all that said, are you willing to buy a PS6 just for the exclusives? And are you still going to buy PS5 exclusives as- aside from Wolverine in the future.
Yeah. Um, I can't lie. I think my gut is no, yes. As in, no, exclusives are not enough for me to buy a PS6. But yes, I will continue to buy exclusives on PS5 when the day comes that they're like, well, not supporting PS5 release anymore, which I don't think they do, right? Don't they still make PS4 ports or something like that? I don't know. Um, then I will consider a PS6. But I don't really see the need. I'm very happy with my laptop right now, and I will be for I think a few years to come, if not more, hopefully. And I don't need super high tech software anyway. Like this is the probably the highest tech thing I've had besides PS5. So yeah, I think again to go back to my answer, I think exclusives aren't enough for me for the PS6 unless obviously this is a cheat code. And again, we've already talked about how Square isn't doing this anymore. But if Sony's like, we're only releasing Kingdom Hearts 4 day one on the PlayStation 6 or some bullshit, right? Obviously, this is a made up situation. It's not going to happen. But if that somehow happened, I break into Sony's headquarters hypothetically, and I get the PS6 myself.
Yeah.
But failing that, I just don't see what exclusive they could do that would rope me in, right? I mean, I love the Marvel Spider-Man series, but I've already played 3 of its games. Am I really going to miss out if I miss out on that last game until it comes eventually to PC? I don't know. Um,
Mm.
I don't know. I right now my gut answer is no. But watch them release the next God of War game and the next Spider-Man game, and I'm gonna be like, but I could have just played on PS5, so I should be fine. But yeah, exclusives, I'm still in. I'll buy Wolverine. Besides Wolverine, I mean, if they made another Spider-Man game or God of War game or something of that caliber,
Mm.
I would, or Ghost game, I'd be there.
Yeah, I said on Blue Sky that I would just dust off my PS5 and just buy the games on PS5 for the exclusives because I've always been like that. I'm very console agnostic. I grew up with every console my whole life. I'm not loyal to one brand. I've always liked PlayStation's brand the most, but I've never been like a fanboy. I've always been very equal, and I would I would buy all the exclusives on PlayStation if I really wanted to play it, right? Like, I only reason why I didn't buy Ghost of Yote is because I thought it was coming to PC. But now that it's not coming to PC, I probably will buy it on PS5 this year now, right? And then Death Stranding 2 I don't have to buy on PS5 because it's coming to Steam this month. But I'll have to get that Ghost of Yotai and Wolverine this year on PS5 because I don't want to miss out on Wolverine. And I can't miss out on the next God of War game because I'm too big of a God of War fan and I'm too big of a Horizon fan and I'm too big of a Spider-Man fan not to get a Spider-Man 3. Like I just can't see myself skipping on those games. The only
Yeah,
reason I skipped on the other games is because I thought it was coming to PC. Ghost of Yotai would have been in my top 10 last year if I played it, right? It's so I'm just frustrated because I have to get a PS6 now because I know they're gonna make games exclusive to PS6. I'm gonna have to buy a whole console just for a couple games. Part of me, there is a part of me sometimes that just misses being on PlayStation only and trophy hunting and all that. Like I miss being on PSN profiles and talking to people and trophy guides and all that kind of stuff. I do miss that sometimes. I do wonder like will I ever go back to just being a PS5 gamer? But I think I'm too far into Steam, and I think I have too many benefits to Steam in terms of like I have too many devices that I use, and I have all these PC handhelds and a great PC. It just wouldn't make sense for me to go back to console. So it is frustrating, but yeah, I will probably buy a PS6 just for the exclusives. I mean, that's what I do for Nintendo, right? I Switch 2, I buy all their games. They're first party. I'm going to play that Poketopia game this week, for example. So Sony put me in a tough place. So I'm just frustrated, honestly. I would have rather just everything came to PC, and I would I would have bought all their games day one. I would have fully supported them. But for people that are PC gamers and they refuse to support Sony in this, more power to you. I have no issue with that. I am fully in support of that. I'm just me. I've always been console agnostic. I play where the games are. If Xbox made their games exclusive to an Xbox console, I'd buy the Xbox console. If Nintendo did that, which they do, I would buy Nintendo. If Sony did that, I would buy Sony. I would have every console. I don't like missing games, honestly. But I know not everybody can do that, right? I'm a tech enthusiast. So there's that. All right. I think we talked about this topic enough, so we can move on to our second topic, which is some random Resident Evil news. Apparently, Resident Evil 1 remake has entered development. It's claimed. I'm reading off Insider Gamer. Take this with a huge grain of salt, but apparently they're working on it secretly. So, according to one of the biggest industry leakers, Capcom has already begun working on Resident Evil 1 remake, and the 1996 classic has already been remade once, but not for 24 years in 2002 on GameCube. Back when, for some reason, Capcom decided to make all their games exclusive to Nintendo. And only a couple years later, they totally regretted it. Like, they legitimately, like, oh my god, what did we do? And then they put everything on PS2. And the PS2 version was way bigger seller. That might make you throw up depending on your generation, but Resident Evil 1 is 30 years old, as we know, because it's the anniversary. The game that kickstarted an entire terrifying genre has aged like fine wine, and its delicate flavor was improved by Capcom in 2002 with the GameCube remake, Resident Evil 1 remake, the one on GameCube and remastered later on, is one of the greatest survival horror games ever made. It's a must-play if you like that genre. I mean, it is a must-play. To this day, it's one of the most beautiful games ever made. It's insane how good that game looks. The only downside to that game is just the tank controls, but even that, they have a modern control scheme on that, so you can control your character much easier. Anyway, so now in 2026, rumors suggest another remake is in the works. It says, with Capcom developing remakes alongside full releases and Code Veronica rumored to be up next following the success launch of Resident Evil Requiem, it makes sense for the large company to be working on as much Resident Evil media as possible. The series has sold over close to 200 million copies, and Dusk Golem thinks that a future project involves the OG game. Thanks to an X-Cancelled thread. It says, I'm aware that more recently full production on a Resident Evil 1 remake has gone underway, though years out time of writing. If you've been following Resident Evil leaks for a while, you'll know that Dusk Golem is rarely ever wrong. He was wrong. He was right about Requiem and Leon being in it, for example. Leaker also just suggested that if it does happen, do not expect it anytime soon. Resident Evil 1 is just recently entering development, so it's likely anywhere from 4 to 7 years out from releasing, presuming it comes out at all since it's in early development and Resident Evil games get scrapped all the time. Obviously, this one is filed under a pinch of salt, given how much fans are begging for a new Resident Evil 1 remake, and how good it would look with Capcom's current RE engine. So what do you think of Dusk Golem's claims? Is a new remake of the original Resident Evil long overdue?
Yeah, I grew up playing RE1 and the remake on GameCube. I don't remember how much I played of either, but I remember even back then being blown away by the graphics. I've seen, of course, video since then in recent years of footage taken from gameplay and stuff. Still, like you said, and like we've said on the podcast before, very impressive looking. Um, you know, I've been very honest that tank controls just don't work for me. My sense of direction is terrible with just normal controls, and sense of spatiality and stuff like that. So I just can't deal with it personally. Fixed camera angles also like really mess me up in my sense of like space and like how to function and just control a character. So going back to these games is very tough for me, and why I've not tried, because I was feeling pretty confident that at some point, if Capcom really wanted to, they would remake them and have, like you said, modern controls, which, the RE1 remake that they did a couple years later for the GameCube, I guess, does. I always forget that. I always think it's like just... Go ahead.
They did a remaster on the PS4 and PC of the remake where they added modern controls. So they cleaned up they cleaned up the graphics, and you have an option between tank controls and modern controls. Now there's still
still have the fixed.
Yeah,
yeah.
You still have the fixed camera angles, but the character feels a lot more smooth to move. It's way easier to dodge
That's
and
fair.
things like that.
And I dislike tank controls more than I dislike fixed camera angles, because at least with fixed camera angles, I feel like, I mean, at least I know where the character is and stuff like
They
that.
serve a
But
purpose.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's still not my favorite. It's still
Yeah.
kind of a rough way to and I get people who really like that say that's the point. It's supposed to increase the tension or make it tougher. Look, I respect that, but that's not the way I personally want tension or stress to come from. Right? I was plenty stressed during Requiem at certain points, and I did not need more. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's overdue. I mean, it's already been what Resident Evil 1 came out, then they did the GameCube version, then like you said they remastered it for the PS4. So I don't know if it's like overdue, but I would love it. I wasn't gonna go back to it unless they did something like this. So I'm
Mm.
definitely there day one if they do.
I wouldn't say it's overdue. I mean, it's obviously it's a different era of Resident Evil. The RE engine completely different, right? It's a different era completely. And we've seen how good the remakes have been under Capcom. Resident Evil 3 aside, which is a good game but not a great game, but Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 remake were incredible. And a Resident Evil 1 remake can be awesome, right? There's so much you can do. You can explore stars way more heavily, right? You can introduce all the characters that, because they with the stars cast, right? Like Resident Evil fans know them well, obviously, like me, but there's so much you can do introducing all the stars characters, make them more like human, make them like have like a scene in the beginning of the game where like you get to walk around the office and talk to them and like feel like you get to know them, and then when the shit goes wrong and everybody starts dying, you feel the heartbroken for them, right? Like you get attached to them. Like that would be such a cool thing. That's probably too good to be true. In my head, that'd be the game I would make, where you get close to the stars members. You get to see like Rebecca when she's young, like just starting, and Jill interacting with everybody, and Chris, being in the Air Force with Barry and things like that. That'd be really cool character development. Wouldn't it be cool like walking around the police department before everything went wrong, right? Just to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Get to see how things developed, and then you start it. Like I don't even need like a whole like 5 hour section. I'm just talking like the first like
Like
20.
30 minutes or something.
That'd be
Yeah.
so cool. And we know they can do stuff like that because Resident Evil Requiem, right, jumps to different locations in that game alone, right? So they can do that, and they just can
Yeah.
they can reuse assets for that. Anyway, I'm totally on board with this. Of course, I'm excited. I'd be very excited for this. They would reuse Jill from Resident Evil 3 remake in it, right? They're having their old classic outfit.
Right.
I'm curious what Chris would look like. We don't know what Chris looks like young Chris looks like in RE Engine. We've only seen Chris in Village, and he's a lot more chunkier and older looking.
Right.
So I'm curious what he's gonna look like when he's younger. Also, one funny thing about Resident Evil 1 remake is none of the endings in the game are canon because there's not.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because technically Jill, Chris, Barry, and Rebecca all survive and get on the helicopter at the end together. But there's no ending where all four of them are on the helicopter together, because in Jill's best ending, you can only rescue Chris and Barry, and Rebecca is nowhere to be found. While Chris's playthrough, you can only rescue Jill and Rebecca, and Barry's nowhere to be found.
Huh.
And you would think Chris and Barry are longtime friends, and you'd be like, "Where's Barry?" Like, there's actually no canon ending technically of Resident Evil remake. Somebody would have to splice the clips together and make it like they're all together on the helicopter. So that's one thing you can
Right.
fix as well. They can also show Wesker like injecting himself with the virus and showing how he schemed himself to get killed on purpose and things like that. You can do all crazy things. You can show the secret laboratory of them experimenting on monsters and that whole build up, right? Of like everything going wrong and the whole I know that's like none of that's probably gonna happen in a game. I think that's like too good to be true. But there's so much
Right.
potential you can do is what I'm saying with this engine. There is so much you can do. And I would be excited to see all the monsters because like Resident Evil 1 remake has like all these animal monsters. You got Yawn the snake. You got Black Tiger, the spider. You have, Neptune, which is the shark. Imagine the shark fight in third person. That'd be cool, right? Like, that'd be very intimidating.
Absolutely.
The tyrant fights would be hard. Like, there's so much you can do. Like, this is exciting. But yeah, this is gonna be far away, like way far away. I mean, they're probably still working on. I mean, they're not probably. They are working on Code Veronica, and
Right.
you'd imagine Zero is right after that. And it doesn't surprise me because if Zero's being worked on, then obviously Resident Evil 1 remake would be worked on, right? It just makes the logical sense because Resident Evil 1 takes place one day after Zero, right? And Dory, another problem with Zero in Resident Evil 1 remake is, Rebecca survives all that horror in Resident Evil 0.
Yeah.
And then in Resident Evil 1, she acts like a helpless child that's never seen this before. Like, she's a completely different character, even though she just survived a whole night of monsters and killed the Queen Leech. And so, like, and then all of a sudden she's helpless. Like, a hunter shows up and she's just, like, cowering in the corner and Chris has to go save her. That's another plot hole in the series. So they could fix all that stuff, tie in Zero's remake with 1's remake, and then they officially have remade 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in their new timeline where they've completely erased the original timeline and made the remakes the official canon timeline. And if 0, 1, and Code Veronica are all being worked on, then I'd imagine at some point maybe 5 and 6 will be worked on, right? Because I'm sure Capcom would love to maybe redo 6, or maybe they never want to touch that again. Not even go near that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows, right?
Yeah. 5, I would love to see get some treatment, just because it's such a product of its time in terms of the kind of bleached out wasteland, grim. Just the aesthetic is just terrible to go back to. I will say I had a lot of fun doing co-op with my roommate when we played that game. There's a lot of fun, and there's lots of memes too. Sheva, come on! Like, you gotta love that. But yeah, Resident Evil 5 was really the start of the end for the series in terms of like. Not
the downward trend,
but start of like the end of that phase.
The downward trend.
Yeah, downward trend. Yeah. Towards 6, where it became way more about because you can argue that RE4 is more action than horror, but like there's still some horror in there, and there's still some spots where you feel tense, or where you feel nervous, and especially early game in the village. There's parts where you'll feel like, you're Ralph, you're Ralph Wiggums. Oh no, I'm in danger.
Yeah. I generally hate the ending of Resident Evil 5 in terms of like the last section where like all these people are shooting at you and everything's exploding, and it feels like a Call of Duty action game, and there's too many one hit KO like with these bugs that kill you one shot. I don't like doing it. My problem with Resident Evil in general is that Capcom sets up a plot line and then they go nowhere with it. Like, they set up a cool character and then they go nowhere with it. Like Resident Evil 6 is not a great game. It has some moments where it's really fun, and I don't hate the game. But I think Jake Wesker is a cool character. Like, I think Jake has a lot of potential, being the son of Albert Wesker, and you're trying to do good in the world. Don't just throw that character away, right? They have so many characters in Resident Evil where they do nothing with them. Like, where's Billy? Where's Carlos? Where's Jake? What is Rose's purpose in the story? Why did they jump years in the future with her? Are we gonna have old man Chris? What is Sherry up to? I mean, we saw her in Requiem and everything, but where does the series go? Like, they waste so much potential. They set up so many plot lines and do nothing with it, is what I'm saying. So
no, and I totally agree with that, because so many times in Resident Evil you'd be like, oh, that's such a cool character, and then in the back of your head, like, who the fuck knows if Capcom's going to even do anything with them, or like a general plot line, like the stuff with Wesker's clones or the sons, or like like you said,
the Wesker children,
the Wesker children. There's just so much shit that Capcom could pull on.
Yeah.
And like they did some of that for RE9. I won't spoil what, but like it just gets frustrating because it's like you have all these awesome characters and you just I am never going to complain about Leon being the front and center of another Resident Evil game. Absolutely not. He's one of
Yeah.
my favorite Resident Evil characters, if not my favorite. But at the same time, it's like you have created so many cool characters. The way I imagine it too, it's like they're like a really bad juggling act. Like they've got a lot of really cool things that they're juggling, but every now and then they'll just put one down and then they'll just forget about it because they've got so many things
Yeah.
going in their hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Ever since Umbrella ended, there's too many companies. It got convoluted. Too many villains. Too many
Yeah.
bioterrorists. Too many organizations. That's why Resident Evil 9 can be somewhat confusing because it's the culmination of everything combined, right? All those companies
Right.
you got mentioned in the game. You see Tricell, you see Umbrella, Blue Umbrella, the Connections. There's so many companies just being mentioned.
Yep.
I think Capcom is kind of maybe they're wiping the slate clean because like I think 9 like established one big villain again, right? The Connections, and that's it, and that's where 10's going. So maybe the remakes are their way of like cleaning things up, but I don't know. Either way, I'm excited. Resident Evil is my favorite, and I'll be there day one. I think there's so much potential with this mansion. The mansion alone could be awesome.
Oops, sorry about that.
You're good. All right. So that's that. Let's get to our last topic of the night, which is Dory's spotlight for Esoteric Ebb, right? Is that how you say it?
That is how you say it. As soon as Xena stops barking, I don't know. I think she's hearing somebody outside. She gets very protective.
No, that's every.
Slash excited.
Those are my dogs too.
Yeah. Yeah, Esoteric Ebb, right? So we talked a little bit about this. I don't remember where. Seb, do you remember when the first time we saw this? There was like a trailer for it on one of the many indie showcases we watched in 2025. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But it was a small indie showcase, and we had never heard of it before. But they were like, oh, it's D&D, and it's a disco-like. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. We talked about how it was a Dory game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what showcase it was.
I don't remember either.
But yeah. But anyway, it left left an impression on me, but then I forgot about it for a long time. And then I started hearing rumblings about a demo, and I played the demo a couple weeks ago. We talked about it. I spent 5 hours in it, which is nuts for a demo. It's so good. And then I just got done beating it last night, actually. I spent about 17 hours in it. I would say I did in terms of how long to beat categorizes, I did a main quest and side quest kind of thing. I feel like I did about 75%, maybe 80% of everything you can do in the game. There are some quests I left unfinished, or there's some quests that I didn't even know about. I joined the Discord so I can, learn about them. But yeah, we'll talk about it. So, Esoteric Ebb, as I've already talked about, is a disco-like. That is to say, Disco Elysium-like. It is. You are playing the cleric, Ragan. You are on a quest and quests are very important in this game. Ragan is a huge fan of quests, so just if you want to make him happy, mention quests. But it's a very silly game. It's a very funny game. I would say, as opposed to Disco Elysium, this game is a lot more light-natured. It's messed up shit still happens, and there's still some dark topics, and there's lots of political topics. Although it's not. Obviously, it's D&D, right? So it's not our time, and it's a homebrew D&D campaign. So it's definitely, it's not even the normal D&D political factions, right? This game is a solo dev thing, but it is made with a team. But it's by I'm going to mispronounce his name, but I believe he's Polish. But his name is Chris. And I forget how to pronounce his or forget his last name. But anyway, yeah, he and the team behind Esoteric Ebb really did a good one. You are, like I said, the cleric. Everybody just calls you the cleric. That way you don't have to worry about names. And you are supposed to investigate a tea shop that blew up. And I had strong feelings about the tea shop, but you can choose to not have strong feelings about tea shops, or even claim that you hate tea shops, which is a weird stance to have, but you can have it in this game. You sure can. And so on behalf of the city, on behalf of your god, on behalf of the towers that taught you magic, you are investigating this tea house that's gone boom. But you wake up at the beginning of the game, so this isn't a spoiler, having died Someone pushed you into the river. You don't know who, in an attempt to assassinate you, and you've been brought back. And you're trying to figure out who tried to kill you, who blew up the tea shop. You've got to deal with a lot of goblin politics. It's very fun. I don't want to talk too much more about the plot because I don't want to give anything away. But there are companions, like Snell and Atir. They're on promotional material, so this is not spoilers. But a goblin and an angel, respectively. So that's very cool. She's not a high leveled angel, but she is pretty helpful to you in your quest. There's combat in the game. It is D&D 5e. So, you're making rolls, you're making checks, you're doing attacks. It's not exactly how D&D would work, speaking as a dungeon master, but it's close enough, and I don't think it needs to be the exact way it works anyway, because that's a tabletop game, and this is a video game. Even Baldur's Gate didn't do it one-to-one, and Solasta 2 probably won't do it one-to-one either. It's just impossible to completely meld the tabletop space to the video game space. But I think they did a great job. I think Chris and the gang did a great job here. So let me get into my pros because I think I've set up the table enough here. Incredible writing. Just, I mean, you have to for a disco like, right? You're going to be doing a lot of reading, so I hope you like reading. But if you do like reading, if you like narrative focused adventures, you're in for a treat. Chris has just done an amazing job bringing this world to life. You can tell that so much thought and care has gone into it. Also, funny to note, Disco Elysium, for folks who do not know, was originally based on a D&D campaign that some of the original devs at Zaum did together, right? This game is also based on a D&D campaign that Chris and other people were involved in. So, even in that way, it's a disco-like, which is very fun to have a parallel. But yeah, back to what I was saying. Incredible writing. The characters feel fully formed and fleshed out. The cleric is such a cool character. He's basically a detective, like Harry was in Disco Elysium, but, obviously he's more religious. Conversations are funny, fluid, they feel natural. I laughed many, many times playing this game. There's, for instance, you can back multiple different parties. An election is coming up, one of the first in Norvik. And so you can back the Free Strider party, which is like liberal capitalism, or you can back the Asgals, which are like social democrats, basically. Think AOC or maybe Bernie or maybe even a little more left than that. And then you could also back the Nationalist Party, which are totally not fascist, I swear. And then there's a couple of other like kind of random parties thrown in there, like the Agriculturalist Party, the Arcane Party, or you can back yourself and be the Wizard God. That's not what I did, but you could do that. But one of the other options is you can be apolitical and not have an opinion on the election at all, despite the fact that it's very important and it's impacting the entire city and everyone is talking about it. But the funny thing is, you can always go up to people and say, actually, I'm apolitical. I don't have any stances. So what do you think about that? And you can be really, really like fucking snooty about it, really like, condescending and just holier than thou about being apolitical. It's very funny. I didn't pick those choices because I'm not apolitical. I think I picked it once. And it was just a backup out of something I said by accident. So yeah, you can try to make everybody happy by being apolitical. It's very funny. The graphics are lovely. It's kind of a simple comic book style, I guess I would call it. If you look at any of the trailers, you'll know what I mean. Everything was very detailed. All the models looked great. It's based on the Unity engine, I want to say. And so everything looks really solid there. The music ranges from jaunty Celtic tunes in Tolstad to warbling techno tracks and electronica, and there's stuff with drums, and it's really good. It's all over the place, but I really liked it. I thought the plot was great. It kept me hooked. I wanted to know who blew up the tea shop, who was trying to kill me. I wanted to get to know Snell better and Atir better. I wanted to learn all these characters and these side quests. I wanted to do pretty much everything the game threw at me. I wanted to do. I felt engaged and I loved the world and loved the writing. And the side quests themselves usually not too much trouble. There's a few fetch quests in there, but I didn't find them super time consuming or nonsensical or anything like that. They weren't a drag on pacing. The central mystery is engaging. Like I said before, I wanted to know who blew up the tea shop and why. And as you go in, the mystery just gets deeper and deeper, and it implicates more and more people, and it goes places because obviously you built a whole game around it, right? So it kind of has to. Um, I think the nicest thing I can say about this game is it feels like a true successor to Disco Elysium. Now, I'm not promising everyone who loved Disco that this is going to hit the same. It's been 6 years. That's probably not the case. But I think this is the closest I've ever seen to a game hitting the highs of Disco Elysium. It's not a 5 out of 5 for me, to get that out of the way early, but it is not that far away. I think it's a very, very good game. And if Chris and the team decide to make more, I think we could be hitting Disco Elysium in terms of, and I obviously it's a disco like, and he himself is comparing it to Disco Elysium. He even thanks them in the special thanks at the end, as well as Planescape Torment, Monkey Island, um, and I think there's another game that he mentions as well. But those are like three of the big ones he mentions besides Disco Elysium. And so but I don't want to like diminish what's happened here, right? This is just an excellent first game from a really promising dev. So whether it hits that high or not, I still think it's worth playing. I think D&D is used here well and mostly intuitively. I mean, I biased because I'm a dungeon master and I've been playing D&D for like 6 years, but I know how to, God, 7 years actually almost this year. Um, but I know what I'm doing, so that helps. But even then, it's not a 1-to-1 between 5e in this game. So it's not like everything I knew was the exact same. So I had some learning curve myself. Um, I love that in the dialogue, there's no easy answers. There's just better choices. Like, for example, I went for the Asgals, who are a dwarven-led social democrat party, but they have issues of their own. And I think the game is very insistent that there's no perfect answer for voting in the election. There's just better or worse options. And I picked the option that most closely aligned with my personal politics. And looking at the Discord of Esoteric Ebb, which I joined the other night, that seems to be the case for most people as they voted for Asgaz, which I'm not surprised by. I like Snell and I like Atir. I actually adore Snell. I think I'm not going to say he's Kim Kitsuragi good, but he's very good. He's a great, great side character. I didn't quite trust him at first, probably because of racism towards goblins. I'm going to be real, but he's just a very cool character. I've heard the phrase "down to earth" be used for him, and I think that's accurate. And you and him just have these really nice moments throughout the game. I'll give you an example. We got through. I'll be very vague, but you get through a dungeon, and you avoid some deadly traps. You sit down, you do a short rest, and what I love about this game is the few times I did a short rest or a long rest, stuff actually happens while you do that, and you're talking to Snell, and you're having a heart to heart, and you're kind of getting to know each other better. It's very nice. Um, no crashes or bugs. Performance was stable, unlike my Discord. Yeah, I didn't have a single major issue. Some minor like character aliasing every now and then or moving around. Some minor UI stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, those are all my pros. Pretty dang positive.
How long is the game generally?
Yeah, it is. So it's tricky to know. So I beat it in 17 hours, including the 5.5 from the demo. Other people said that they beat it in around 20. Other folks put about 50 hours into it and said they did absolutely everything. But I presume that's multiple playthroughs, or if not, just a lot of reloads. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that the same length as Disco Elysium? Was that game longer than that? I don't remember.
I feel like Disco's a little longer. Disco's like 25, 30, but also
that sounds right.
Yeah, but also I might have done more in Disco Elysium. I don't remember. But it's around the same length. I know Chris said that if you want to like for a first playthrough, you want a completionist run. Oh, it says 30. So main story says 23.5 hours, and then main and sides is 33. That's pretty much what Chris said, is that if you want to do like the main story, but do like a lot of the side stuff, you'll probably get around 25 to 30 hours. I don't know how I got 17.5. I must have blitzed through it. It really depends on your reading speed too. I read very quickly, and I'm used to playing these kind of games. So I imagine for somebody else who doesn't do that as much, it might take you a few hours extra or so. There's also, like I said, there's some quests I didn't do There's some quests I didn't even know about. There's a lot of replay value here, is what I'm saying. So that's another pro as well.
Are you gonna replay this game? A different playthrough?
I I'm hesitant. I did do that with Disco Elysium, but I'm not sure I'll do that with Esoteric Ebb because I'm very satisfied with how it went. The most I'll do is I'll reload the save right before the end of the game,
Yeah.
because of course I made quite a few saves before then, at least 2 or 3, and track down a couple quests that I didn't do. I think doing those extra quests might get me up to 25 hours, but I'm not sure. So I don't feel like a huge inclination, but I do feel tempted to go back and do some things. But I've already gotten spoiled. Well, purposely, I did it. I joined the Discord and joined the spoiler chat. But I wanted to know, like, okay, what am I missing out on?
Yeah.
What's this? What's that? So there's definitely a couple of cool quests that I really missed out on, which is surprising because I was pretty prodigious in searching around the area of Tolstad.
Yeah. So does it feel more indie than Disco Elysium? Does it feel a little cheaper? Like, no, I want to see it cheaper, but like, does it?
I think it feels pretty similar, actually, in terms of indiness. If you told me this was made by a professional, like, team of indie devs, I would say I
Yeah,
would believe you. But the fact that it's mostly done by one guy,
it's
and
crazy.
again, he has a team. There's people who did the
Yeah,
art. There's people who did the music, but he's the main writer, right? There's nobody else, as far as I know.
yeah,
I'm really impressed by that. I think also technology, has come pretty far since the 7 years since Disco was made. And Zaum, when they made this, were a very young company too, right? So they were relying on, I don't think it was proprietary engines, but I could be wrong. I thought they use Unity too, but I could be wrong, like I just said. But
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't feel any more indie than Disco Elysium. If anything, it feels pretty similar in terms of like fidelity to me.
I see it. It's one of the highest rated games of the year so far as well.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good. It deserves that. Now, that said, I do have some cons. They're very minor. They're nitpicky. Overall, I think this is an excellent game, so keep that in mind. I had some minor UI issues. You have to press Shift to run. I don't recommend playing this game with a controller, by the way. I did that for like a first 5-10 minutes of the demo, and I'm like, what am I doing? It's a CRPG, and it's like you can do it, and you can play on the Steam Deck too, by the way. And Chris says the Steam Deck ready, so that's great. It's certified and all that. But I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend mouse and keyboard because it's a CRPG. But yeah, I had some minor issues. You press Shift to run, and you can press the Tab button to open your inventory. Now, if you know anything about Steam, when you press Shift and Tab, it opens up another menu outside of the game. And that caused my cleric to like move around, even though I wasn't controlling him. And even when I exited out, he was still moving around, even though but I mean, it was simple. I just minimized the window, went back into it, or I pressed the Windows button. Wasn't a huge deal. Um, I couldn't quite figure out how certain things work. Like there are these shards that you can do to re-roll on checks you failed, and you get lots of them. There's tons of them, so don't feel bad about spending them. The game's not about resource management, but and use items too to boost your stats. I wish there could be like preset stats so that I didn't have to keep moving around item after item, keep going into my inventory, and then switching out items for a conversation, and then exiting the conversation, and going back to my normal layout. It was a little annoying. It wasn't a huge deal, but it's something I noticed. Um, but yeah, I didn't always know when to use a spell. Sometimes you can use spells during a conversation and they'll glow brightly, but unless you're looking in the bottom left, it's not gonna occur to you to use them. And sometimes there's just lack of explanations for how to do things. So, like I said, the shard of Jor, I did not use that during my first day or two because I didn't know that. I knew that they were supposed to help you with conversations, but I thought you were supposed to use them from the inventory. But I never saw a prompt, so I was so confused. But yeah, you just click on a check that you failed, and it allows you to use one shard of Jor to reroll, and you can do that for as many shards as you have. So that's very cool, but I wish they'd explain it better. Because I actually had to get it from a random tip screen after I died in a battle. I wouldn't say, by the way, this game is too challenging, but if you go in unprepared and you don't know what you're doing or being dumb, you're gonna die. So, but it's D&D, so you should expect that. I think my biggest problem with the game and the reason why it's not rated higher than a 9 or a 4.5, I got lost sometimes, and that's not just a me thing. I've talked to other Esoteric Ebb players, and they've also gotten lost during to find certain quest lines. Some things just don't feel as connected as they should. Like you're trying to find a star witness from the tea shop explosion, and his hat is one in one area, but he is in a totally different area that has no connection to it at all. So it's just like little things like that, and the way to find him is kind of esoteric. But really, it is kind of like you have to have a certain spell, or you have to talk to a certain character. It's just like in D&D. If you don't do the exact right thing, sometimes you just won't find the answer, right? And that's a risk with any CRPG. But I feel like it could have been mitigated. You could have had a couple more characters know how to guide you better. Because I spent
Yeah.
day three and maybe some of late day two wandering around being like, how the fuck do I get to the undercoast? Where is this star witness? How the hell do I get to him?
Is it was that intentional because that's the name of the game?
Um, I don't I don't think it was intentional for me to be frustrated by not
Or
being
being
able to
lost, I
find.
guess.
Yeah. I think to some extent, obviously that's part of dungeoneering and part of D&D is finding your way to the solution by yourself. But I do feel like they could have offered the player a little more advice. I don't think it's intentional in as much as it frustrated me, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess I'm a little mixed on this con. It's not a full-throated con, but I wish there was a little more to this game. I spent about $22 for it, which is not a bad price, and I got 17 hours out of it, and I loved it. So absolutely not a ripoff, and not what I'm saying at all. I do wish there was a little more to the game, though. I wish it was a little longer. Now, I've heard other people spend a lot more time in the game than I have, and like I said, for the third time now, I left some quests unfinished. There are some quests that I just outright never started. So there is more to the game. I just felt kind of satisfied where I was. So like I said, that's why it's not like a full-throated like con, because like I'm kind of conflicted on the con actually. Like I feel like there could or should have been more, but at the same time, when I got to the end, I was like, you know what? I feel good. I got a lot of side quests done. I really got to know these characters. I love this world. I love this writing. I'm day one for any other game that Chris makes. So I don't know. It's just a mild criticism. But at the same time, there's a lot of replay value. You can go in and make a totally different cleric. Of course, I was a rogue, not a cleric. I was a rogue, and you get to very proudly and loudly tell people that every time they call you the cleric. Say, nope, no, no, no. I'm actually a rogue. Ignore the religious garb and my helmet and my book of earth right here. I'm a rogue, a very sneaky, stealthy rogue. But yeah, that's the cool thing about it. You can spec into whatever you want, and throughout the game, mostly at the beginning, but throughout you can't go back and spend points,
Yeah.
but you can kind of modify your spells, or not spells, skills, and skill points by equipping certain things. So
Yeah.
those are my cons. Did you have any comments or questions?
About the cons, no.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Uh, that's about it. I think it's an excellent game. I think if Resident Evil 9 hadn't come out, I would have easily said this was my game of the year, just because I haven't played a lot of 2026 games that have excited me as much as Esoteric Ebb. That said, I think this will be staying in my top 5 all year. I find it very hard to believe that something top 3, maybe not. Maybe that'll get supplanted, maybe by a Wolverine or a Phantom Blade Zero, or something I'm really looking forward to, right? But it's going to be hard. I mean, this is the epitome, and I know we say this all the time, of a door game. D&D, disco-like, lots of dialogue, very funny. Jason Schreier said it's kind of reminded him of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy mixed with Disco Elysium, mixed with D&D, which I would say is pretty accurate, right? Douglas Adams kind of irreverent, sarcastic, sardonic kind of, if you've ever seen his detective series too, it feels like that too. His holistic detective agency, Dirk Gently, that's what it is. Kind of feels like Dirk Gently mixed with Disco Elysium, mixed with D&D, and I love all those things. I've actually read Dirk Gently, 2 of the novels about him, and they're both great books. So yeah, definitely my sense of humor. I think if you like Disco Elysium, I can't say this enough. I have to give this an absolute full recommendation. It's very good. There's good replay value. I think there are good messages here. I think the politics are on point, but it's not. I think Chris is very careful to leave things complicated. Like I said, there's no perfect option in the election, and you're not supposed to think there is one. You know, it is good narration. He's not just saying, "Oh, well, the Asgals are the best because they're the most left wing," or whatever people would say that this game's fucking woke or whatever. You know, every party is given their chance. Some are given more negative attention than others, although I felt like it was deserved, given their ideologies. But you know, the Asgals are also given a bit of a. There's definitely a couple of scenes where their ideology is questioned in some of the ways that they think. But yeah, that's Esoteric Ebb. It's very good. Go play it.
All right, that concludes our episode for tonight. We'll see what comes out next week. What we're going to talk about next week. I believe next week will be Fatal Frame 2, although I don't know if I'm going to talk about it next week. But that is one game that's coming out on March 12th that I'm interested in. And that's the big one. I am going to play Pokemon Pokopia, which is
Pokopia, yeah.
Which is the second highest rated game of the year.
It's between that and Resident Evil 9, very funnily.
Resident Evil 9 is the highest right now at 89, and Pokopia, Eugenics, and Esoteric Ebb are all 88. So those are the top 4 games right now.
It's ridiculous. And I honestly think that's kind of reflective of where the games industry is at. Like, every now and then the AAA space can really nail it, but the indies are clawing at the heels. Like, they're so close to, like, just surpassing that. I mean, last year was Year of the Indies, of course, at the Game Awards. But anyway, that's all another topic. I think Solasta coming out soon, too.
Yeah, it comes early access, though. It comes out...
Early, well, that's what I mean. Yeah, early access.
Yeah, Solasta 2 comes out...
March 12th.
Yep. I don't know why it's not on this. I have no idea why it's not on this list. They just seem to left it out. Yeah, Solasta 2 comes out March 12th. There's a bunch of games on March 12th. I feel like this list is not that... is missing thing. Yeah. Toxic Commando... John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, Solasta 2, MLB The Show, and that 1348 X Photo game comes out.
Yeah, the demo came out for that. I didn't play it, but I heard good things? ?
I'm interested in that game as well. So that all those games come out on the same day.
That is wild.
And then you would think it'd be over, but March 13, the day after, is Monster Hunter Stories 3 and WWE 2K26. It's a very busy month. A busy middle. And that doesn't even include Fatal Frame Crimson Butterfly Remake, March 12th. And Ghost of Yotai Legends DLC, March 10.
Yeah.
So there's tons of games in this middle of March. And then 1 week later is Crimson Desert and Death Stranding 2 on PC.
And Crimson Desert, it should be said, we didn't talk about it, has been getting very good positive previews. I watched the IGN one. I was pretty impressed with what I saw and what I heard. So, I mean, I think Seb's day one, I'm pretty sure. So
if it's good, depending on the reviews.
Yeah. The previews are good. So, I mean, unless something changes or unless after playing it for longer, you start seeing the cracks, stuff like that. So I think you're right for waiting on it. This really feels like I was watching a YouTube short and they were like, oh wow, everyone's so excited about Crimson Desert. And they're like, but they're also nervous. And the other guy's like, why? It's like, it just looks too good. What? No, it just looks too good. I don't believe it. What? What are you can't appreciate good things? I've been burned too many times, man. Too many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I too have been burned by the games industry on things that look too good to be true. So I will also wait and see. But previews are sounding promising.
So it seems like I'm going to be playing Fatal Frame 2 and you will be playing Solasta 2. And
I think so. I'm not sure. I don't usually play early access, but I am pretty excited about Solasta, so I might give it a shot, depending on how much it is and all that.
Yeah, does it have a price yet?
Esoteric didn't have it until the day it came out, but maybe Solasta is different. Yeah, it doesn't have have one right now.
Okay. Yeah. So there's plenty to play. I will play Esoteric Ebb at some point this year because I I think Disco Elysium is the greatest indie game ever made, if you ask me,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And Mugenics, my friend has it on Steam, so I can play it, and I'm curious how that game's gonna play. And I still have to beat Neo 3, which I'm really enjoying. Of course, we talked about that already.
Nice.
So it's been, and I also have that game, Planet of Alana 2, that came out this week. I haven't played it yet. And Escape from Ever After, I have bought on Steam, and I have not played that yet either. So, and I still got to finish Dragon Quest. I still got to finish the Super Bomberman game, and the Scott Pilgrim game came out this week. And I'm playing World of Warcraft. So, busy, 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 busy. Time for games.
Yep.
Not that I'm playing. Not that I'm rushing all these games. This is like spread out for a whole year. Like, I'm not in a rush to play everything day one. So yeah. Also, Dory, did you have interest in that game, Demon Tides? Like, that was another game that's highly rated.
I would. I don't know. I heard good things about it, but I isn't it like a platformer or something?
Yeah, it's not really your game.
It's not really my thing. It's a 3D platformer, open world. I do love the aesthetic so much. I think it's beautiful. It's got a very positive rating based on 375 reviews. Honestly, if it had more reviews and was at that percentage point,
Yeah,
it'd be overwhelmingly positive. So that's cool. But yeah, I heard from our mutual friend Louise that it's very good. But I've not played it myself, and it's not really my thing. Open world and platformer.
yeah. So there's a lot of games coming out at the same time, but I don't think I'm gonna be buying all these games like day one. Like, only maybe one or two at most. I really hope the Fatal Frame game, the remake, ends up being good. That series needs to come back stronger
Yeah.
than ever. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. You all have a good night, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thinks of something dramatic to say. Thumbs up.